Nigerian breed. It was after he said that Nigerians are buying inhaler that used to be 3,000 plus for almost 28,000. So are they breeding? Are they breeding? You know, your colleague was talking about GSK and how some drugs have gone out of the reach of the average Nigerians. So surviving in this administration has been very difficult. So President Bola Tinubu was prophetic when he was saying let Nigerians breed, because there were some things that were beginning to hinder Nigerians from breeding.
Now let's begin this conversation taking our quote first from Abraham Lincoln. He once said, "If this country is ever demoralized, it will come from trying to live without work." Okay, my next quote is from Idowu Koyenika, who once stated that your pride for your country should not come after your country becomes great. Your country becomes great because of your pride in it. Okay, absolutely spot on. My next quote will be from George Bernard Shaw, who once stated that patriotism is fundamentally a conviction that a particular country is the best in the world because you were born in it. Absolutely spot on. Now let's see how this quote relates to what we'll be discussing tonight. Very warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation, reaching you from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. Tonight, we'll turn our attention to we'll focus on Nigeria that's the state and the mood of the nation, as we've started the series with regards to 2023 in retrospect. We're reviewing 2023 as we're looking forward to a brighter and a better 2024. But then we still have to look at all that happened in 2023, where we made our mistakes, and if we're able to learn our lessons. And today we'll turn our attention to the state and the mood of the nation since January up until today. That's the 11th day in the month, the 12th day, rather, I beg your pardon, in the month of December, as we're looking forward to the end of the year. And my guest on the show today is Rotimi Johnson, who is a public affairs analyst. We'll be looking at the state of the nation and also the mood of the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, whatever you're doing tonight, just grab your seat, get your cup of water or your freshly brewed and made juice, made especially for you, and let's see to have this conversation with Rotimi Johnson on the state and the mood of the nation. Welcome to The Conversation, and I will be your host. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We're reaching you from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. All right, so we started that series on 2023 in review here in Nigeria. Today, we will be looking at the state of the nation in Nigeria. And my guest on the show today is Rotimi Johnson, who is a public affairs analyst. Great to have you on the show today, sir.
It's my pleasure.
Great. Okay, now, so looking at 2023 in retrospect, let's start from all that has happened all through the year. Elections. You have then brought forth a new government, a new administration, even though it's in the same party. Most people will tell you tomatoes, same difference, or that's like 6 and half a dozen. But then the thing is, or the fact remains that we already have a new man in the block. So, and then you have the inauguration, the statements made, the speech, the fuel subsidy is gone, and how much it's the reverberating effect of that statement and the speech entirely. And then you have the First Lady of the Federation, where she talked about how her and her family, her husband, they do not need Nigerians' money. They have all the money that they need. So many statements that have happened all through the year. So now let's look at all that and how much it has affected the polity. What are your thoughts in this regard?
Well, so much has happened in 2023, and so much has been said, so much has been reported. But personally, I think more than before, the media, the fourth realm, there's a need for us to rise up to the occasion, to rescue our democracy, to be more objective, and to be more patriotic, more than before.
Are you saying that the media is not patriotic?
You know, this same Nigerian factor, the syndrome is creeping into the rank and file of the Nigerian media, and there's a need for us to rise up to the occasion otherwise, because it has gotten to a point that every Nigerian just wants to survive. It doesn't matter whether you're a journalist or you're a medical practitioner. Everybody just wants to survive. Everybody just wants a cut of the cake. So don't bother how it is baked. Don't bother whether it is properly served. Everybody just want their own cut. Get there, get your own, and just forget the others. The journalists are human beings too. They have bills to pay. You know, so you can't blame them, but we can only employ them to be more upright and objective, seeing the way our democracy is going. So that's all I can say in that area. But, you know, analyzing the comments so far, majority of those comments are just political statements. You know, they're just playing to the gallery. You know, when politicians say...
Including fuel subsidy is gone?
Yeah, that was one of the greatest mistakes of this administration, because that utterance came and they have not been able to catch up with it again. It was ill-timed. It's not the problem we are facing in Nigeria is not that the fuel subsidy is gone. Was when it was pronounced and how it was pronounced that has given us this much problem. Most Nigerians anticipated the removal of the fuel subsidy. But we know in Nigeria that once you announce such things, even those who have truckloads of fuel in their farm tank will even increase the price. Because in Nigeria we're so familiar with panic buying. How much more when it has been pronounced by the new president that it is gone. So from that moment, things changed. Until now, they've not been able to rectify that error. It was in the pronouncement. The timing was so wrong. But in administration, there is how you manage information. You know that this thing is inevitable, but you don't let it out until you have put some things in place to be able to ameliorate the effect on the people.
So that means that they didn't actually see that coming before he made that statement, even though he had not appointed his kitchen cabinet at the time?
Yes, that's why I said it was ill-timed. You know, because one thing, I don't excuse this administration from the hardship, and I will not stand to defend them anywhere. Any hardship that arises as a result of fuel subsidy removal. Because in 2012, the actors in this administration, they led a major protest against the then government of Jonathan against subsidy removal. And if now you are proposing subsidy removal, we expected you to have a holistic proposal and implementable program to make it work seamlessly, which they have not. In the last 6 months, it is evident that this government came into power without any clear-cut plan on how to manage subsidy removal or even to manage the economy. They only had plans how to get into power and get into office. So there are two different things. They had everything prepared to get into office, but they got into office before now thinking of what to do about governance. That is the problem we have at our hands, because the subsidy has gone since then, May 29th, that it was announced, but till now, we are still grappling with the effects. So that's the problem, because there's no clear-cut, vision for governance yet. And even in the 2024 budget that we have seen that there's still no direction yet. Yes, you have listed the expected source of revenue and how you intend to spend it. But as a people, where are we going? We have not seen that yet. So that's why I said, as a person, I cannot exonerate this present administration from the present hardship, particularly because it is the same political party. If, in 2015, for the next 3-4 years, they kept, it was like a rhetoric. We are still battling with 16 years of decadence imposed on Nigeria by PDP. But after, you discover that 8 years after, there were no appreciable changes, positive changes. Then this one came in until last month when the NSA said they met an empty purse.
I was even going to ask that. Does that even count for anything at all?
We knew even before they pronounced it, but because it's the same political party, there was a limit to which they can indict the last administration without indicting themselves. And that's why they have been so very careful in pointing accusing fingers. Because when the opposition parties were accusing the last administration of laxity, of cluelessness, they were the one defending the last administration. And they have come in now to now be telling us that they met an empty treasury. So it is like, where were you when this administration was devouring and clearing off our treasury? Because the kind of projects that we can see in the last 8 years of the immediate past administration, can it justify all the money they claim to have spent? That's why this administration cannot be exonerated from the hardship inflicted on Nigerians by the last administrations. Then on the First Lady, I like the First Lady so much, but that statement that we don't need your money is a political statement.
Oh, really?
It's a political statement. I will tell you. We all knew how President Tinubu, as the candidate of APC, was fearing. We know his comportment. We know how frail he was before he was sworn in. But since he became sworn in, he has looked better. He's more composed. He talks even better. His speeches are better articulated than those days of Bala Blue. So how do you now?
Sorry, I had to butt in there. I will allow you continue, but then some people have actually said that there could be some political undertone during that political process, the elections and all those golfing that we had at that time. It was all politics. Do you agree?
No, I don't.
And after all, is there something inside Aso Villa that makes one looking, he's always looking free during the elections, but then when they go in, they're always looking better than ever?
One thing Nigerians must understand. I've been in elections many times. I even ran in the last election. And I can tell you categorically that the exhaustion can affect your frame of mind, even when you are not sick. And I will give you an instance. I embarrassed myself, because the election fell on my birthday, 25th of February.
Okay.
And I was going to do a video clip, and I misquoted the date of the election. Election that fell on my birthday. So the stress of running for campaign, the demand on your mind, on your energy, on everything, it can affect, your composure and your articulation. I agree. For somebody that is this young, how much more for him? So there is, you discover that if you don't take enough rest, you may miss out on some things.
Okay.
So I can excuse some, not all.
Okay.
I can excuse some. But to now say that the school of thought that it was a game, it was like they were playing to a script. No. Some of those things were too embarrassing
to be a game.
To be a game.
Okay.
And the way they played out, that they were not premeditated. You understand? Because when you suddenly become incoherent in the middle of a speech, You know, we all look at it now. As analysts, you play the whole video. Then you now look at when it came in. You know, could this have been planned? You know, so it was not planned. They were fatigue. They were earth factors. You know, combined to make those mistakes happen. Then, so that those were not really part of the game.
Okay.
But looking at it in retrospect, you know, they will now think, oh, everything still worked out in his favor, despite all we thought could have worked out against him. You know, in Nigeria, Nigerians are funny. And that's why sometimes I say that Nigerians deserve the kind of leaders they get. Because in 2015, when Buhari was campaigning in 2015, he went to Imo State and said Oshibade instead of Oshibajo. Nigerians said, no, it doesn't matter. Then at the point they were scrutinizing his results, he said, he doesn't have O-level certificates. Even if it is the NEPA result, we will collect. You know, even if it is NEPA sheet, he will collect. So that's Nigerians for you. But when you get to this office, without mincing words, I think this is the most powerful presidency in the whole world.
You mean the 16th president?
No, as in presidency of Nigeria. I'm not talking about in terms of influence outside Nigeria. The kind of influence the president of Nigeria has in Nigeria, I think is the most powerful president. Because in that office, you are like, it is like a kind of autocratic setting. Forget about the tiers of government and the arms of government. Forget all those things. The judiciary. No, the president of Nigeria has full control. You know, we still practice a kind of centralized government, and our democracy is just like a mirage. That, you know, let's just call it democracy, so that they will say we are practicing democracy, because it is whatever the presidency wants that happens in Nigeria. So, to large extent, when you are in the presidency, you will fare better. You know, when Obama became the president of America, his countenance dropped and he looked older because he had so much stress, you know. But in Nigeria, when you become the president, even Obasanjo, we know how he transited from the ex-convict look that he had to when he became president, and the old man became so handsome and fresh. So the kind of attention you get as the president of Nigeria is beyond the issue of money.
Also, it adds to their health?
Yes, it will improve your health because you have all the best of attention you can get. You have all the attention you can get. Not from the State House Hospital that they say they don't have drugs, though. But you have access to any kind of medical personnel from all over the world, you know, at the snap of the finger. As an individual, you might not be able to achieve that because of the diplomacy that it might involve.
Okay.
But as the president of Nigeria, if it takes taking the presidential jet to go and bring any physician from any part of the world, they will do that.
Okay, so then you say that that office, it wields so much power, even autocratic powers. But then, does it actually mean that the people that they appointed, the 48 ministers or over 40 of them, and then the DGs of different ministries, departments, and agencies, does it actually mean that they are not working? It means that it is just one man calling the shots.
It's not one man calling the shots. Exactly like you put it, but it's like everybody watching the body language of the president to know what to do and not what to do.
Oh, really?
It's not like you have the modus operandi of your office or portfolio that you just follow it to the letter. No, they watch the body language of the presidency, you know, to know what to say, to know what to do, who to see and who not to see. Oh,
really? So for instance, for instance, if you have the Minister of Interior say that we're going to clear all backlogs of passports that have been pending, he has to wait for the body language of the president. Is that what you're saying?
He's saying that because he believes that's what the president wants. That's what I'm saying. He's not saying it because he believes that is the right thing to do. There's a difference between the two. So if the president wants something done, you work in line with that, not in what Nigeria needs or what Nigerians want. So that's what I'm saying. For instance, if there are vested interests in presidency now, not just the president, that do not want that to happen, you suddenly discover that he will just keep quiet. He will just keep quiet. That's what has been happening in Nigeria, not just this administration. That's why that office is so powerful. So if you have a president that is willing to give his aides and appointees free hand to work, you see better results in that kind of leadership. To a large extent, I believe that the last time we had that kind of freedom was during Obasanjo regime.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was during Obasanjo regime. Yar'Adua was sick, so we could not really assess him, objectively. Then Jonathan too had some freedom when he had the Minister for Finance then, Okojo-Iweala, and the economic team, they had freedom. But to others, they would look at the body language of Madam Patient or Madam President to know what to do. But this administration too will have a little freedom in some ways, but the main thing that is going to affect this administration is the cost of living. The cost of living
for the average Nigerian.
Yes, the cost of living is not going to come down. And I say that confidently because this administration is a capitalist administration. They don't believe in welfareism that will make things come cheap for people. They will give you infrastructure. They will give you some projects, but you also pay for them. Just look at Lagos State in the last 24 years. What has happened? They will keep doing infrastructures, but Nigerians will pay for it.
Okay, so we'll do for a break, but before we go on that break, in 1 minute, because you said that this government is a capitalist government, so are you accusing the president and his team that regardless of the fact that they say, let the poor Nigerians breathe, and then that they want to make Nigerians happy, but yet they still practice capitalism? It's just all wishy-washy.
Let Nigerians breathe. It was after he said that Nigerians are buying inhaler that used to be 3,000 plus for almost 28,000. So are they breathing? Are they breathing? Your colleague was talking about GSK and how some drugs have gone out of the reach of the average Nigerians. So surviving in this administration has been very difficult. So President Bola Tinubu was prophetic when he was saying let Nigerians breathe, because there were some things that were beginning to hinder Nigerians from breathing. They are beginning to manifest now.
Let's go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue this conversation with Rotimi Johnson, public affairs analyst. See you after now. Join us again. All right, let's go back to insecurity, curbing insecurity from a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest.
You mean
how far
this
so far?
administration?
This administration to formal administration, that's in the era of former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan.
Well, in Ebele Jonathan's regime, it was not this bad. Let's be sincere.
It wasn't?
It was not this bad.
Despite the dropping of bombs at some point?
Yes, we had issues of insurgency and terrorism, but they were not widespread. There were panic, but the spread of the insecurity then was not this bad. Let's be sincere. Because then, insurgency, like I always teach my friend in the APC, that APC, they are good at adding to our vocabulary. In Nigeria, there was nothing like terrorism. They have brought it.
If you just joined us, this is The Conversation coming to you from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you've actually missed out on a whole lot, but then you can still join in the conversation, as my guest on the show today is Rotimi Johnson, a public affairs analyst, and we're looking at 2023 in retrospect with focus on the state of the nation here in Nigeria. Okay, so talking about, you talked about how President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was actually a prophet to prophesy that Nigerians need to breathe, but yet inhalers are not cheap at all. I was even talking about, talking to my colleague also, how some other multinational companies are leaving the country. You talk of GSK, you talk of, now we heard of Procter & Gamble that we all grew up with, that makers of Pringles, of Baba Blue. That's what we call them. That's Vicks Lemon Plus and all. And then also Sanofi. So, and how much it has actually affected the economy and all. Now, I would like you to take, let's get your word in that regard, because I saw a particular newspaper this morning that says, I'm trying to find where I even saw it. Yes, Vanguard newspaper says, manufacturing sector bleeds as forex loss rises to 400%. to 466 billion naira, squeezes profit by 24.6%, leads to layoff of workers, multinationals leaving, threat to economy coming from analysts. And then, like I was saying, augmentin that we always buy for 1,000 or 2,000 at some point, and now it's over, almost getting to 30,000. And some people have said it's because of these multinationals that are leaving. And while some other person said we should blame it on the economy, and then some say don't blame it on the economy. But we've had all of this back and forth in that regard. And we remember how some other company left at some point, Dunlop, you have Sanyo, so many of them have left. How much is the economy? Is it actually affecting and making these multinationals leave? And how much will Nigerians, I don't want to use the word suffer, but how much should Nigerians be looking at again by the time Procter & Gamble leaves, by the time Sanofi leaves, and many other companies, even hospitality businesses?
Well, thank you. You know, one thing we must always have at the back of our mind is these multinationals are not in Nigeria because they love Nigerians so much. They are in Nigeria to come and make profits. So if for a prolonged period of time, something has affected their profit margin negatively and they don't see it improving, their primary goal is profit. So they will have to change their location to where they think they will get better profit. There is no two way to it. They are not in Nigeria because they love Nigeria. No, they are in Nigeria to come and make profit. And to what extent that
but it's a win-win situation for Nigerians who are using their product and for them who are making the profit.
Now, you must understand something in marketing, that because we have the population, so it is reasonable for most manufacturers to come and site their companies in Nigeria. It's like citing it in their major markets. Okay. But if despite that projection, they are not realizing the profit they anticipated, they will have to leave. So they will rely on exporting the product to Nigeria, which will increase the price of the product to the end user, to the retailers. So that's what is happening. But apart from the economy, because if you talk about the exchange rate, all these things are the economic indices that will either increase their profit or reduce their profit. You also talk about insecurity. Then you also talk about policy insecurity too. Because if they cannot be sure of what the government will come up, because you have a lot of policy reversal. For instance, there was a company that was going to close up in Oyo State, a dairy company, because of this backward integration program of the CBN introduced about 4 years ago. And this company had over 1,000 employees. They were going to close up. And if such company close up, look at the ripple effect of 1,000 employees on the whole community where that company was situated. So you have these things affecting companies. Then if you have your raw materials, because most of these raw materials, which are sometimes agricultural products, sometimes imported, many of them are now so expensive. So companies keep doing research, keep coming up with developing products. So they also research if they will have a better place where the cost of production will be lower and they will be able to maximize profit. So when they get anything like that anywhere else in Africa, they move They move because they also look at the part of their cost of production, which has affected most companies, is power. Power. They spend so much on diesel, and the diesel price keep going up too because of the exchange rate. So to what extent are they surviving?
But then diesel price, is it entirely Nigerians' fault? If you have to look at the current crude oil prices globally, that has gone over $70 per barrel.
It is Nigeria's fault because we have crude oil in Nigeria. So if we have been refining in Nigeria as an oil-producing country, then we should not be talking about exchange rate when we are talking about the price of fuel, petroleum product in Nigeria. That is what we grew up to understand. But now that we are importing fuel, petroleum products into the country, so the exchange rate has gravely affected the cost, which many of these companies, when they were being cited in this country, they were like they are setting up their country in petroleum producing country. So in a bigger frame, there is no how it will not affect their projected profits. And when companies like this, they are multinational, well, there's no sentiment in it that because we like this person or we like this government or we like this climate. They are in the business to make profits. And once that is being affected negatively, they think of relocating.
All right.
Because if they don't do that, they will begin to hold their staff.
Okay, so now let me remind you of a statement made by, I think it was Richard Branson, who was the CEO of Virgin Atlantic or Virgin Nigeria at the time before they left Nigeria. He said something about, I can't quote him verbatim, but he mentioned that politicians and the Nigerian business space entirely is not making it easy for entrepreneurs to survive. They're always looking for one way or the other to stifle the average entrepreneur in Nigeria. Do you still agree with that? Since then, when they left Nigeria up until now, is that what we're seeing?
I agree very well with that, because if somebody at his own level can be complaining, you can imagine the small-scale entrepreneurs in Nigeria. Because the system we operate in Nigeria does not encourage ideas, does not encourage startups, and when you are already stabilizing as a manufacturer or as a business person, then you have a lot of taxes to contend with, apart from ever increasing cost of production. One thing that will affect any major business is the fact that when you are presenting your budget for the year, you cannot confidently determine the cost of production. That, this is the cost of production per sachet of paracetamol. It's just 25 naira. You can't say that throughout the year that's going to be the cost of production. So
how then did we now peg ours at 750 naira per dollar? And then even the fuel price at 700, was it 700? I can't remember the price. How then were we able to peg our own budget at that amount then?
Budget, what the benchmark is an assumption. Okay. The benchmark is but it's supposed to be a reasonable assumption. You understand? But that assumption will also depend on other economic indices to make it a realizable assumption. So in Nigeria, to what extent have we been able to realize that? Because we don't have institutions. We don't have strong institutions. We don't have strong institutions. And, there was a time I was following up on a particular site where all producing countries will state, all producing countries will state, a lot of indices relating to the production of their crude oil, the marketing, the consumption, and all those things. And when it was the turn of Nigeria to release the statistics, it was left blank. And it was supposed to be released by all countries that same day. The following day, I went back to check. It was still blank. The third day, it was still blank. There were no statistics. So these are the things, because institutions, they go a long way. Because I may want to do things on will and just by whim, feelings that I have. But when there are institutions, they will check me. I keep referring to, we had the election this year. I've had the opportunity to talk on a couple of forums and interviews about this election. I said, we have what we have in Nigeria because we don't have strong institutions. Politicians can always be funny. You have exceptional politicians.
Like, but if you went for that election, that makes you one of them.
Yes.
Makes you a politician.
Yes.
So you're speaking for yourself
they
also.
Can want to be funny. Yes. Because we are all human beings. Politicians are human beings. And that's why they say everybody is a politician, including Annabelle. That we are all political animals. But institutions help to checkmate our excesses. That was what happened in the US. The US have strong institutions. So when Donald Trump, because I always say that he's an African in white skin, when he was becoming funny before the election and immediately after his election, it was the institution that rose up to protect the sanctity of the democracy and the nation. Because left to Donald Trump, he was ready to bring down the National Assembly just because he didn't want to hand over. He was ready to do so many things, just like Nigerians normally do. But because they have very strong institutions, look, you are just a man. And will not allow you to derail the future of this country just because of your assumption or over-ambition. That's what institutions do. In Nigeria, we don't have strong institutions.
So you mean that is actually going to be possible if you have one man who wants to bring down institutions in Nigeria? Is that what you're saying?
That's what's supposed to happen. So it will help to check the excesses of politicians. So if you have strong institutions like the security agencies now, it doesn't matter who the governor of a state is. If you are breaking the law, they will get you arrested. If you have strong institutions and INEC is truly independent, it doesn't matter which party wins. They will declare the party as the winner. But you see what is happening in Rivers State. You see what is happening in some other states. Immediately after this election, because we're still talking about 2023 in RETROSPECT, the incumbent, the APC candidate, and they could not even access INEC office after the declaration of the results that PDP won in Rivers State. They could not even go and submit their petition to the Election Petition Tribunal, where we have security agents. Some people just stood by the road and prevented anybody from coming to submit anything until the deadline lapsed in the country. So we don't have strong institutions. So, and if you don't have strong institutions, they will only look at, who will pay for any service, or they will do things just to please whoever they want, not as stipulated by the law that created them. So that's what has been happening in Nigeria, but we need to get to a point that our institutions will be very, very strong. Once we have strong institutions, I think Nigeria holistically will fare better.
Okay, so two questions before we let you go, and then we'll round up. One is, Daily Times says rising kidnapping, security agents battling to block replay of Jonathan's era in Abuja insecurity. Not only Abuja insecurity, because we've seen how much there've been surge in one chance and all, and then there's some criminal activities especially in the FCT, but then in other states. So would you actually say, comparing previous administration, because now Daily Times is comparing Jonathan to currently, that means also adding former President Muhammadu Buhari, So if you have to compare between a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest, how far would you say we've done so far with regards to insecurity, curbing insecurity in Nigeria? That's one on the side. The second question is, we'll return back to when you were talking about where you were responding to the First Lady, where she stated that Nigeria, they don't need Nigerians' money in Nigeria, they're rich, but then in the budget you have over 1 billion naira earmarked for her vehicle and all that was alleged to be earmarked for her vehicle. But then you have some Catholic bishops saying that federal government is anti-people and wasteful and unconscionable, that they are wasting so much money on frivolities. Do you agree to that? Those two questions before we round up.
Well, I agree to the issue of frivolities in governance and not cutting expenses, because we are in very hard times in Nigeria, and a good government, leadership that is sensitive with, appropriate emotional intelligence, that this is a time to cut cost of governance. But unfortunately, this present administration has not deemed it fit in any way to cut the cost of governance. Instead, I think it has even increased. Then on Madam Tinubu's comment, yes, if truly they don't need Nigerians' money, why can't they declare that they are serving Nigeria pro bono? That's the best way to go. Look, to demonstrate that we don't need your money, even if it's just words of mouth, let them declare that, okay, henceforth, we'll run our own private jet on our own cost. We will not take salary or allowances from Nigeria, because salary is so small compared to the real allowances. We will not take salaries or allowances for Nigeria. I will run my own, convoy from my own personal purse. That way. Is
that doable in Nigeria? Is it doable?
It's doable anywhere. If you want to, where there is will, there is way. But would they be interested in doing it? And that is where you question that statement, that it was just a political statement. Because if you're so rich, like she claimed, then take away the burden of running your office from the government purse to demonstrate that indeed you are sufficient.
All right. All right, let's go back to insecurity, curbing insecurity from a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest.
You mean
how far
this
so far?
administration?
This administration to formal administration, that's in the era of former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan.
Well, in Ebele Jonathan's regime, it was not this bad. Let's be sincere.
It wasn't?
It was not this bad.
Despite the dropping of bombs at some point?
Yes, we had issues of insurgency and terrorism, but they were not widespread. They were panic, but the spread of the insecurity then was not this bad. Let's be sincere. Because then, insurgency, like I always teach my friend in the APC, that APC, they are good at adding to our vocabulary. In Nigeria, there was nothing like terrorism, they have brought it. There was nothing like insurgency, they have brought it. Now there is banditry too. Some of these things, they are alien to us. But so it's better then. It was better then, during Jonathan, but we had problems. But now, when Tinubu administration first came in, I gave it to them that they were doing the right thing in the area of security. But lately, in the last few weeks, I noticed that, I don't know, maybe like they were saying then that corruption was fighting back. Maybe insecurity is also fighting back. But I noticed that there is a slight spate of increase in, reports of insecurity from some parts of the country, which in the last 2 months, they were really on top of the situation, because there were reported cases of, neutralizing them, wiping them out. But lately, then since I came to Abuja, I've been hearing this case of one chance. I don't know, maybe that's reaction to hardship. Because when there are hardship, people that are desperate to survive, they will begin to do a lot of criminal activities, anything to get money. In the southern part of Nigeria, that has increased is ritual killing. The level of ritual killing in the southern part has been phenomenal. It is mind-blowing. they just want to survive, even if they have to kill somebody else with the assumption, or I don't know whether it is true, that killing the person will bring money. They will go to any length. So those are the things that has been happening. So I believe some of these activities now, but I'm positive that this administration will be able to still manage it. So on the scale of 1 to 10, I'll still give this administration 5. 5
looks good, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I think they are trying.
Thank you so much, Rotimi Johnson, Public Affairs Analyst. It's been a wonderful time having this conversation with you.
It's my pleasure.
Great. All right, viewers, that's where we end this conversation for today. We have been chatting with Rotimi Johnson, who is a public affairs analyst, as we're looking at Nigeria's 2023 in retrospect, the mood and the state of the nation. Whatever you do, ensure that you stay safe before you enter that vehicle, even that private vehicle, boat. Ensure that you look out well. If the number is not matching with what you have on your app, please stay away. Stay safe is all I can say. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Annabelle Oji. God bless you and yours. God bless Nigeria.